indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we start with the consent agenda, the June 6, 2023 Olmsted County Board minutes. Letter B, payment in lieu of taxes for Mayowood 2 project. Letter C, Class A solid waste hauler license name change. And let's see, letter D, extension of the discharge access database system service agreement. Are there any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Consent agenda is passed. Thank you very much. Informal agenda items. The first one is Family Service Rochester update. Travis Grancy, are you going to make the introduction?
Chairman Wright, Commissioners, my name is Travis Granzy. I'm a Deputy County Administrator supporting Health, Housing, and Human Services. I'm here tonight just to do a quick introduction. Scott Maloney has joined us from Family Service Rochester, and he'll be taking over at the podium here in just a minute. Just a little bit of background in regards to Scott and Family Service Rochester and why he's here tonight. As you may recall, over the course of the last several months, we've had a number of our appropriation agencies come in and share information about the organizations and the work that they do to serve the community. Scott and Family Service Rochester, although they don't fit into that appropriation work, they do receive a lot of county funds to provide services, either in lieu of us providing those services or in addition to us providing those services. And so if you remember, we had Center City Housing come and Nancy Cashman share some information. That was another agency that fits into the category that they receive county funds, not through an appropriation, but through contracts. And we thought it was appropriate if we had Scott come. We know that Family Service Rochester does a lot for us as a county. They also do a lot for us as a community outside of the work that we do just in that contracted aspect of things. So we thought it was very important that we have Scott here, and he's going to share a lot more about Family Service Rochester, and I hope you leave with a little more knowledge about the vast array of services and mostly the breadth of the work that they do. I don't know that we'll get into a ton of depth tonight, but we've considered Family Service Rochester a really significant integral partner to the work we do here in Olmsted County for many, many years. So with that, I'll hand it over to Scott.
Thank you, Travis, and thank you for having me this evening. As Travis mentioned, I'm Scott Maloney, Executive Director at Family Service Rochester. If I can figure this out, how might I move the slides? There you go. So Family Service Rochester is a community-based organization, and we provide services that address mental health, family stability, child welfare, and senior independence. One of the cool things about Family Service Rochester is we've been around the community since 1965. I think we're a bit of a hidden gem in the community. But one of the cool things, in the first 50 years of Family Service Rochester, we had 2 executive directors. I am the 3rd executive director, and I think I'm too young to be contemplating retirement, but I hope that will be around the 75th anniversary of Family Service Rochester, and I think that would be a cool legacy. I have been the executive director for 8 years, and I've been at Family Service Rochester for 23 years. Today, we provide approximately 30 programs. We have 2 primary office locations in Rochester. We're on 18th Avenue Northwest in the former Remax Realty building, and then we also have a location on Highway 14 East next to Air and Sanity. We do stuff in about 12 Minnesota counties, and we have about 155 employees. I'm not going to talk too in depth on this, but these are our principles of partnership. This is how we are grounded in the work that we do. So the 6 principles are: everyone desires respect, everyone needs to be understood, everyone has strengths, judgments can wait, partners share power, and partnership is a process. And this is how we do our work, not only with the families we serve, but also our multiple partners in the community. And I hope if you can take one thing away from the presentation tonight is the emphasis on the partnerships, because all of the programs that I'll talk about are a partnership with other agencies, oftentimes Olmsted County, and other groups in the community. So I'll jump into our smallest department and probably our most well-known department, and this is our department that provides services that support senior independence. And we have professional and volunteer staff that deliver these services, and we have about 800 volunteers. And I say the most well-known department because these are our programs, and almost everybody, when they think about Family Service Rochester, or I ask, do you know Family Service Rochester? They say, don't you do Meals on Wheels? Yes, we do Meals on Wheels. A couple cool things about our Meals on Wheels program is we served about 35,000 meals last year. But what's maybe unique or different about our program is we do it 365 days a year, including holidays. And that's pretty unique in comparison to Meals on Wheels programs around the country. Most are just delivering Monday through Friday and definitely aren't doing holidays. And you might think that it might be difficult to find volunteers on holidays, but we have families and volunteers that sign up right away to do Christmas and other holidays. It's something they like to do with their families. And just a reminder, Meals on Wheels is not only the meal, but it's the assurance that your loved one is safe on a daily basis. And oftentimes that's even more important. We also do FSR Fresh, which is the delivery of fresh food. We partner with Channel One and local grocery stores, and we provide fresh food to the clients we see. We also have what we refer to as our Senior Cafe. It's congregate dining, which is a partnership with SEMCAC, and we do that both in Byron, and we also do that at our South location. Then we have our Neighbors Helping Neighbors efforts to support senior independence. This, in addition to Meals on Wheels, is where most of our volunteers come. About 80% of these activities are delivered through volunteers. I think it's important to the business model for us to have volunteers that can deliver these services. We do primarily non-medical items, friendly visiting, respite, lawn care, snow removal, transportation, handiwork, house cleaning, home safety checks. And then we have a unique partnership with the Home Depot Foundation and Meals on Wheels of America, where we do home modification projects for veterans. And we just got invited to submit a grant for a project that would pay off the mortgage of a veteran in this community. And so we'll see if we get that up to $150,000. So we'll see if we get that grant, but the fact that we were invited is encouraging. Our largest division focuses on family stability and child well-being. This is primarily delivered through social workers, and I think we have around 45 social workers. The programs that focus on family stability and child well-being are, many of these programs are under contract with Olmsted County. We have our Youth Behavioral Health Department, which is a collaborative effort with Olmsted County and Zumbro Valley to provide case management to services for kids, or families with kids who have a mental illness. We have our Domestic Violence Response Team, which is a program that we developed in 1999. It's a child protection response to domestic violence when kids are within sight or sound of an incident. We're pretty proud of that program. It's very unique. It's gotten national attention. We focus most of our work on the men who are violent. And I say men because 99% of the time it is men. Many child protection responses oftentimes blame women for the violence of men. We open the cases under the men's name, and we do a lot of the work with the men because we know if we're going to impact family violence, we need to change their behavior. Parents and Children Excel, or PACE, is another collaborative effort with Olmsted County that serves particularly kids of color with school attendance, who have school attendance or behavioral issues. And the goal there is to keep them out of juvenile justice and child protection, because we know in particular when kids of color get into those systems, they oftentimes do not have good outcomes. The Educational Advocate Team is our response to kids that are truant in this community. Our Family Support Team provides early intervention. to families. We provide services to the families that live in Gage East, which is housing for those that are chronically homeless. We have our Family Access Center, which is another collaborative effort with Olmsted County. Olmsted County provides in-kind space, and the Family Access Center provides supervised visitation and safe exchanges for kids where that's required. We have the Father Project, which works with dads who oftentimes have little to no involvement in their children's lives, and we're working with them to secure employment, involvement in their lives, and oftentimes some sort of parenting time or custody. We have our Family Involvement Strategies team. This team has garnered international attention. It's a team of neutral facilitators that bring families and support systems together to develop plans when kids have been abused or neglected. We provide that service in 12 different counties, and we've provided training and consultation in Japan, the Netherlands, United Kingdom, Canada, and multiple states around the United States. Guiding Partners to Solution, or GPS, is another collaborative effort with Olmsted County. It's essentially system navigators, recognizing that we have a very resource-rich community, and it's oftentimes difficult to navigate systems and services. And our last child welfare program is our Family Advocacy and Recovery and Restoration. And this program works with parenting or pregnant women who have a history of substance use disorder. And we're working with them to maintain sobriety and have healthy pregnancies and healthy children. Lastly is our mental health department. This is primarily therapists, though we do have a psychologist as well. And we're providing services both on an outpatient basis in families' homes and also in schools. So our family-based services do just that, go into the families' homes. Sorry, I'm starting with outpatient mental health services. We do a number of evidence-based practices, including trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, eye movement reprocessing therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, or DBT, managing and adapting practice, cognitive processing therapy, emotionally focused therapy, and we also do diagnostic assessments. Most of those services are delivered out of our north location. Our family-based services are just that. We go into families' homes and we provide therapy for a multitude of issues, but this is usually when there's children in the home, and some of the issues are family issues around children. Then we have our community-based services. This is where we have therapists that are spending time in various different community locations. So we have therapists that spend time at the Jeremiah program, Gage East, the Von Wald Shelter. We do some collaborative efforts with Dodge and Olmsted County Community Corrections, Salvation Army, Byron Pre-K, and Head Start locations. And then lastly, our school-based mental health efforts is an initiative that's happening across the state with the goal of embedding therapists into every school district, making those services accessible and not requiring kids to leave the classroom, drive somewhere to see a therapist. So we have therapists in the Byron School District, Dover, Yoda, Plainview, Elgin, Lake City, Cannon Falls, Kenyon, Wanamingo, 3 Rochester Public Schools locations, Chatfield, and Casson Manorville. And I know some of those are outside of Olmsted County. Lastly, we're pretty involved in community building issues. That's an important part of our organization, and some of the highlights that I'll point out is the Meadow Park Initiative. This is an initiative that's a partnership with IMAA, a partnership with United Way, various departments in Olmsted County, Public Health is involved. A place-based initiative is focusing on an area that's oftentimes racially diverse, but definitely low income, and engaging that community to reach their hopes and dreams. And so Meadow Park, you may know, Meadow Park is where I grew up, and it's a broad swath of Rochester, but we're focusing on the area directly across from the fairgrounds and the apartment complexes there. And so that neighborhood is interested in the crime, they're addressing crime, they're interested in the housing, they're interested in their kids succeeding in school, and that all of the residents are seeking better employment and a better life for themselves. We're part of the leader in the age-friendly communities effort, and I hope all of you know a little bit about that. But that's an international effort to focus on creating age-friendly communities. And then lastly, we're pretty involved in the Rochester Nonprofit Consortium, something Family Service Rochester started and is now housed at the Rochester Area Foundation. And that was built around collaboration and efficiencies across the nonprofit sector. I'll end my last slide, and then I have a short video, 2 minutes. Here's some of our opportunities and challenges going into the future. Opportunities, we're always looking for new partnerships. I mentioned that that's part of who we are. We, like Olmsted County and other businesses, are focusing on diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives. One of the things that we're very proud of is about 27% of our staff are staff of color, and that doesn't take into account other demographics, but we have success in recruiting and retaining staff of color, and we're proud of that. We're interested in a new initiative around the creation of what's called family resource centers, and the legislature has passed some dollars to support that, and we're partnering with Olmsted County to explore what that could look like. One of our challenges is the continued delivery of clinical services or mental health services. As far as I know, actually I'm quite certain, with the exception of Umbro Valley Health Center, we are the only mental health center in this community that provides those services on a sliding fee. And we provide those through insurance reimbursements as well, but we're oftentimes providing those services to low-income people. In fact, 47% of our clients in our clinical services receive some sort of financial assistance to even access those services. Those rates have not increased for 9 years, and that is difficult. I noticed here that I skipped over our legislative influence. This year, we were involved in testimony and advocacy on 4 legislative bills. And to be frank, we haven't done that a lot before in the history of Family Service Rochester. So we're learning how to do that. And we anticipate we may do more of that in the future. A couple of the last challenges is having a competitive edge when we're dealing with business costs that are probably no different for Olmsted County or any business, but increasing business costs. The 2 most challenging business costs that we have that are increasing even faster than staff salaries are health insurance, as you can imagine, and probably IT services and technology. And then lastly, we are running out of space once again, and so we're trying to figure out how we might address our space needs into the future. So before I jump into the short video, any questions? Yes.
Mr. Chair, a while ago, I was involved in some conversations about the space needs, and I know that there have been approaches made to Olmsted County. I think there was a collective of not-for-profits. Is there anything to report on that work or where your current thinking is?
There's not anything to report that's new. Yes, as you may know, we submitted a proposal to be considered at the Seneca site, and we were not chosen. But the project doesn't die at the Seneca site. We still have very strong interest in doing something collaboratively. I and others came up with this vision of, wouldn't it be great to have shared nonprofit space, lower overhead and savings and collaboration, and I thought it was a really brilliant idea until I found out that the state of Colorado has 23 of these centers, and so the idea wasn't as cutting edge as I first thought. But the idea is still there. I think the nonprofits that are part of the collaborative bring some capital and some expertise and some continuity in the community, and any support or assistance or guidance that the county or anybody could provide to see that come to fruition would be awesome.
Could you say a little bit more about what that vision is?
Well, a shared space. We think some efficiencies could be created with conference room space and reception space. The partners are Families First, IMAA, Zumbro Valley, Legal Aid of Olmsted County, and Elder Network. And more recently, Listos Preschool has expressed some interest, and they have an interest in having a preschool on site. So in many regards, I've never thought of this as Scott's project, but the Community of Nonprofits project. And so if that ever came to fruition, it may look very different based on the partners and their needs that they might have.
Any other questions? All right.
Family Service Rochester. Family Service Rochester is a community-based organization that provides services that address mental health, family stability, child well-being, and senior independence.
Within those, we have adapted over time to add different programs as a need comes up in the community. We have a trusted network of dedicated volunteers that are going to deliver those services with compassion and be excited to serve a new population as well.
Family Service Rochester is that organization, is that employer who doesn't just see a family because you're also struggling, but sees the families because they have potential. In times of need, you can tap into anyone to respond to your need.
I love that I get to help people. I love when I see changes in people's lives. I love that I get to connect with people, not only as a therapist and client, but even amongst coworkers. I feel validated, I feel acknowledged, I feel respected, I feel heard. I feel like I belong here.
I think it's very welcoming, and we're willing to, work with individuals to find out, what type of services they need and how best we can serve them.
One thing that I really enjoy about my job is that I get to help people to continue to live with dignity, and I work with amazing people that really want to better the community that they live in however they can.
For the past 50 years, we've been adapting to community needs, and I expect the breadth of services that we provide will evolve over time to meet new community needs. And it's really exciting and fulfilling to me that we can make a difference in people's lives. I think they know, or they feel, that they can trust us to deliver excellent services with them being at the core of the work that we do at Family Service Rochester. Thank you. That's all I have.
All right. Mr. Maloney, I want to express my appreciation for your organization as well as the other nonprofits that really do work with Olmsted County, because the county can't do it by itself. And you certainly have stepped up in your organization as to work with the county and outside of the county too, bringing your good work to other people as well. So, I was going to comment on some of the things that you do, but it's too difficult to pick any one thing out, because it's very hard to not be impressed by all the things that you do. But I do want to say that when you opened the south place that used to be at Bremer Bank.
You've told me this. I know where you're going.
I appreciate that. And I did get an opportunity to go to the senior cafe, not as a senior, but as an invited county commissioner. And I think that's really nice that we have that kind of a communal thing for people to get together, because isolation is one of the real difficulty things that seniors have. So
no, I thought where you were going is that you were disappointed that we purchased the former Bramer Bank because I thought you had told me that was your bank.
Well, it was for a while, but I think it serves much better purpose now than the bank, so you did well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see here. We are at 5A, the 2022 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Wilfredo Roman Catalan. I'm the Olmsted County Chief Financial Officer. And tonight we have our auditors from Baker Tilly, Sheehan Hediger, as well as Katie Sam. They're going to be taking turns in doing a presentation for you about the 2022 audited financial results. What I will, before I turn it over to them, I just want to say a few remarks and a few express my gratitude to a number of individuals in the organization. And first of all, to my staff in finance who put together this report. It takes a lot of effort, time, and commitment. They did an excellent job putting it together, not only creating the support documentation, but also being available to the auditors as they needed follow-up questions and information. I'm also very grateful for the other staff in all the county departments who devoted time, energy into making sure we have a successful audit and present that information in a successful way. Special thanks to Nancy Thomas. She is the assistant controller, coordinating all the work with the auditors and within the organization, making sure all the logistics are taken care of. And finally, to the Baker Tilly staff for their knowledge, professionalism, and willingness to provide an audit that it was efficient and painless. So that's important as well. And again, before I turn it over to Baker Tilly, there's a few things that I would like to mention, just general terms about key drivers for us having a solid financial performance, as you will see in their highlights from the auditors. Number one is clear direction from you, the county board, and the county administrator. So that's really important. A forward-looking administrator, as well as department directors who are innovative in their perspectives. Third, but actually the most important thing in my mind, is staff who understand their purpose and who are committed to working as a unified team, not only within finance, again, throughout the organization, making sure things are taken care of. We in finance may see things after the fact, so making sure departments are on top of things as they work through grants, agreements, and things like that is really important and paramount for us to have a successful audit. We have in my opinion, a very responsible budget process where we take into consideration 5 years out for capital needs and other modeling revenues and expenses, as well as the needs for our self-insurance funds, especially the health plan. We systematically look into our finances at least on a continuous basis, but at least twice a year, very comprehensively. We meet with department directors, managers, and staff, and we make sure everything is moving along as planned in the budget, and if not, what adjustments are needed, what type of recalibration is necessary to make sure we finish the year strong. And obviously, we have very strong reserves in cash liquidity, which have served us really well during the time of need through the pandemic, as we have the flexibility to do things that others may not have been. And finally, I will say federal funds have been received that have been very key for us to continue to have those solid foundations, so we don't have to dive too deep into our pockets to make things happen. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Sheehan or Katie.
All right, thank you, Wilfredo. To the board, thank you for allowing us to have this opportunity tonight to review the 2022 audit results with you, and also for the opportunity to do this remotely. That does really make it a little more efficient on our end, so appreciate that. As Wilfredo said, my name is Sheehan Hediger. I'm a partner with Baker Tilly, and I oversee the Olmsted County annual audit engagements. And with me, I have Katie Sam, who is a manager over the engagements as well. Oh, I'm supposed to share my screen. I'm sorry. Let me get the presentation up here quick. Okay. Can you see the slides?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so on the agenda, what we're going to cover here this evening, just an overview of the audit results, go over a few financial highlights, and then ending with some strengths and challenges that we noticed for the audit. So starting with the overview of the audit process, we started our planning and preliminary procedures back in December of 2022. We did have a little bit of on-site time. I think it was one day just to do some inventory procedures and some walkthroughs, but otherwise the bulk of the audit fieldwork was done remotely again this year, kind of that middle of April timeframe. The county staff is very well prepared for each step of the process, and things went very smoothly from our end. We did issue 3 reports. So the independent auditor's report on the financial statements. So that's the 3 pages of the big report that is actually ours. And then the report on federal awards, and then finally the reporting and insights from the 2022 audit. That one's really just informational, gives you some highlights of how the audit went on a look back basis, and also a look forward of the scope and timing of future audits. So I do encourage you to read that if you've not already. We did just issue these about a week ago, so understandable if you've not had time to digest all of these yet. So happy to report that we encountered no difficulties in dealing with management. We had no disagreements over accounting or reporting or auditing matters. And we did not note any transactions that were significant and unusual or lacked any authoritative guidance. And probably one of the best results there at the bottom, the no material audit adjustments, and actually no audit adjustments at all this year. That's just a really great result when you think of the number of transactions that happen in a year. We are looking at things from a high level and sampling, and we do have materiality thresholds, but just a really great result and kudos to the financial team. I would really like to take this opportunity to echo Wilfredo's comments. Just a lot of gratitude to the finance team, to Nancy, who kind of works as our gatekeeper and keeps everything organized and gets us information. But everybody, all the staff that we contacted is really great to work with. The remote process goes very well. The county has implemented a lot of great technology that allows us to be able to do that process without being under the feet of your staff. So thank you everyone that was involved, being very responsive and cooperative through the process. Just a little more summary of that audit results. So again, I said the opinion, those 3 pages is really what we are issuing along with the annual comprehensive financial report. We did have an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. So it's often known as a clean opinion, or the highest level that you can receive. We also need to look at internal controls over financial reporting. We look at the processes that are in place and various checks and balances that the county has throughout the process. And we noted no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. So again, very good results. And then finally, we do look at the Minnesota Legal Compliance Guide that is issued by the Office of State Auditor. And we did not have any findings of material non-compliance along with that. So overall, very clean results with the audit. So then the second report that I mentioned is the federal awards audit. So this is where we looked at 3 major federal programs this year: the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds, also known as your ARPA funds, and the foster care program and the medical assistance program. Those major programs are determined based on a risk assessment process, and then there's coverage requirements by the OMB. So following those guides, we do test compliance over all of these programs as spelled out by the federal agencies and the compliance supplement that is issued annually. And in addition to that, we also have to test internal controls over those compliance requirements. So ultimately, again, no material weaknesses identified, no significant deficiencies identified, and we were able to issue an unmodified opinion on the compliance of those major programs. So we had no findings, and again, just a really great result, especially in these programs that have a lot of eligibility, nuances, and reporting that's required. So great job to the staff of working through those programs too. I'm going to turn over to Katie for a little bit here to cover some of those financial metrics then.
Okay, the first metric that I have is going to be on the government-wide financial statements. So all of the funds of the county are going to roll up into one of two columns. The first one's going to be the governmental activities. And this is where the general fund, infrastructure, health and human services, that's where this is all combined. So what we want to look at is our net position, which increased compared to the prior year by $9.6 million. So down a little bit from the increase you saw last year, which was $23.4 million, but still healthy growth. And then when we look at the breakdown, because net position will fall into three different categories, it's pretty comparable, the breakdown year over year. The majority of your net position is that net investment in capital assets, which is just the value of your assets less the debt used to finance the purchase or construction of them. Unrestricted is that next largest category, and then the smallest one is restricted, and that is just an outside party outside of the county. Commonly, grantors, contributors, laws or regulations have restricted the use of these resources. And then the next one you want to look at is the business type activities. So this is really made up of the waste management fund, sanitary sewer, and it did include the communications fund, and also the HRA, which is included, but it is audited by another firm. So same thing, you can see that the breakdown year over year is pretty comparable, very similar to the governmental activities. The majority of your net position is in that net investment in capital assets. And for the business type, the net position increased by that 8.7 million, which is up from the 3.3 million increase that we saw last year. And then I have two debt metrics to share with you. The first is that legal debt margin. So the debt limit is calculated based on 3% of the taxable market value of the property in the county. And you can see that that is just shy of 631 million, which is up from the 600 million that it was last year, which is just telling us that there's been an increase in the tax base in the county. So when we look at the total debt that's subject to this limit, which is that 87 million, up from the 81 million last year, the debt limit margin that we have is the 13.84%. And when we look at that over the past 5 years, it's been very consistent, and it's a really good ratio. It's very low. It's just able to tell us that you've been able to finance your routine operations and projects without having to borrow. So that's great. And then the second debt metric I have to share is the debt per capita. So what we've seen kind of over the past couple of years with this one is that your estimated population continues to grow, and then your outstanding debt has been fairly consistent. It's actually slightly lower than it was in the prior year. So when we look at that one over the past 5 years, it's also pretty consistent. It's just another indication of your low borrowing. So that was the last metric I had. So I'm going to toss it back to Sheann to share a few strengths and challenges.
All right. So just to round out our presentation here, a lot of these are similar highlights that we've presented in prior years, but they still really ring true for this year. Um, Again, for 2022, a very strong general fund balance position. We didn't cover that specifically in our materials, but kind of the the fund balance we look at, that assigned and unassigned numbers, in comparison to 2022 expenditures, sitting at about 104% of the expenditures. So you have over a year's worth of expenditures in available fund balance, and that's a really strong position to have. The enterprise fund operating expenses are adequately funded with the operating revenues, so your rates that you're charging for things are adequate. Within the whole enterprise funds, so that's the waste management and HRA mostly, strong current ratio sitting at 4.5 at the end of 22, and that's your current assets divided by the current liabilities. So it's basically saying you have 4.5 times more assets than liabilities to cover your debts. We say like 1.2 to 2.0 is a good ratio. 3.0 and up would be excellent. So sitting well there. Continue to have a strong net position in the self-insurance fund. So that's available to manage the risk of claims. The county continues to have the highest bond ratings from both Moody's and Standard & Poor's. So really that gives you the advantage for better rates, and especially in this market where interest rates are rising. You're not going to get probably a great one, but you will be on the lower end of rates if borrowing is needed. As Katie just went over, a low debt relative to the debt limit. The tax levy per capita compared to the state is below average. You have a nice increasing tax base, so you can keep increases down as you continue to grow the community. This one I love to highlight, the strong team of the finance professionals, really robust policies and procedures. This is evidenced by how well the audit process goes. It is a large undertaking. It's a lot of time on your staff, but everyone does a great job. This also is evidenced in the implementation of the GASB 84 or 87 lease standard this last year. That was a really big undertaking. There was a lot of agreements to comb through, a lot of nuances to pick out to determine what was considered a lease under that accounting standard, and then ultimately to bring that on the books and get all of that recorded. We worked through that with Nancy and team. They really did all the heavy lifting, and we just, assisted with some questions as needed, but they did a very good job with that standard implementation. With that ARPA funding, the investments in the county and the community are really impressive. So far, you've been able to claim most of that or all of that under the lost revenue provision, which has just freed up tax dollars to do other great initiatives within the community, not covering routine operational things, but actually going out and creating new programs, incentivizing home ownership and affordable housing, investments in groundwater protection and sewer systems, and mental health initiatives for children. So doing some really great things with those dollars. And then finally, the county has a very low unemployment rate, 2.1% as of April of 2023, in comparison to the state, which is at 2.9%, and nationally 3.1%. So continue to have good employment opportunities and keeping that unemployment rate low. On the challenges side, a lot of these are industry-wide. They're not exclusive to Olmsted County. You're not the only one facing some of these things, but probably one of the larger things is the largest property taxpayer, and the related entities comprise 6% of your net tax capacity. So a fairly concentrated tax base when you think about this largest taxpayer. But it's the Mayo system, a very stable and necessary industry. So not likely, I guess, to lose that or to see that going anywhere anytime soon. Capital improvement plan changes, costs continue to increase. We're seeing inflation. It is slowing a bit, but it's still very prevalent and something that does pose challenges when trying to do transportation projects or just routine capital improvements within the county. Overall inflation and the rising interest rates. Again, Olmsted County is well positioned to not have to be borrowing outside of planned projects, but those interest rates do pose more financial burdens to everybody. Offsetting to that low unemployment rate is also just the hiring challenges, finding the right people into the right roles. And this is prevalent across all industries, not just government. And being able to provide that competitive pay, it seems everybody could go somewhere and find more money these days. So with the reduced workforce, competitive pay being an issue, it just is a challenge that many are facing in this era. Cybersecurity continues to be a threat everywhere. You can open the newspaper or Yahoo News almost every day and see new breaches or new threats to IT environments. So I think the county does a good job of staying on top of firewalls and security and such, but it's always a rapidly changing environment. For ESG, everybody I think is still figuring out their role in this initiative. Just something to continue to follow along and make sure that you're keeping that in mind through various initiatives. For Olmsted County, there's just a pressure to be on the cutting edge. You guys do a great job of things. So just always needing to look for ways to improve efficiency or add value to operations to serve that growing population that you have. And then lastly, accounting standards always pose some challenges. As I mentioned, GASB 87, the lease standard, was implemented for 2023. Now looking ahead for 2022, I'm sorry. And now looking ahead to 23, we have GASB 96, which is going to mirror that standard, but rather than tangible leases, it's for software-based agreements. So I know that the staff is probably already diligently working on inventorying those agreements and looking through them, but that will be another big undertaking for the finance staff. So with that, concludes our presentation. Here's our contact information. If anybody wants to reach out at any point during the year, we welcome communication from the board. And we really look forward to continuing our relationship with Olmsted County.
Thank you very much for your report. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Baker Tilly. Just in case there's any questions or follow-up or comments.
Does commissioners have any questions?
Senator,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I do have one. Ms. Hedinger, can you talk a little bit about the debt ceiling or the debt limit and how that is established? And maybe you went through this and maybe I just didn't catch it, but we have, I believe, a $631 million tax or debt limit, at least as you identify it, and we're at 87 million. So there's a lot of room there, the way it looks to me. Is the debt ceiling that you have established, what is that based on in terms of a formula?
Yeah, I can follow up with that,
Sure.
Commissioner. So it's a formula established by statute. It says that we can go and borrow all the way up to 3% of our market value. So our market value is about 21 billion. So 3% of that is the 631 million that they mentioned. So that's how it's calculated. It's based on statute.
So to follow up, if I did 3% of the market value of Olmsted County, it would come up essentially with 631 million?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much. I mean, I'll just say it, we have a lot of capital
Right.
improvement interests out there that we may or may not be successful with the state of Minnesota. And it's just good to know there's reasonable debt room there if we want to do it ourselves.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
It just, we're already, as you saw, per capita, we will see those numbers then increase on a per capita basis. But you're right, we have room. We're just trying to be able to manage that in a way that is reasonable for the community to absorb. I personally believe that issuing debt for capital projects is the way to go because it allows the community to pay as they go through the process, right? As you are a member of this community today, if we wait, let's say, 20 years to save and then do the project, then those 20 years I pay for it and probably I'll be gone by then. That's a problem. But if we issue debt, then we pay as a collective, as a co-op, we pay a little bit at a time over the next 20 years. While I'm paying, I'm getting benefit. If I decide to move away from Rochester or Olmsted County, and that's okay. I only pay for what I use in a way, right? So that's the mentality there. And we never use debt for covering operational needs. Never.
No, of course not, no. But Mr. Chair, there's a lot of interest, inflation rather, working through our system right now, and we see it in our projects here, and
Yeah.
in some respects, the longer that some of our important needs don't happen, the more they cost. And, we understand that, and we have an opportunity to perhaps do some of these things ourselves, based on our debt ceiling.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
Mr. Roman Catala and Ms. Hediger and Ms. Sam, thank you for this presentation. I think it bears pointing out that the challenges that you list in this report are national trends. These are the challenges that all organizations and businesses are facing, and that these are not organizational specific trends, which is a remarkable result from a report like this. And I just want to congratulate you and thank you for your expertise.
Well, thank you. Like I said before, I like to deflect all the generous praises to the rest of the staff, not only in finance, but the whole county, because it's the collective wisdom that makes things happen. And we're very successful just because of that.
Are there any other questions or comments? I just have one. I just wanted to report or point out that Baker Tilly said they had no findings and an unmodified opinion. So for those of us that are not into accounting, what that means is that we had an excellent report and that they couldn't find anything wrong with it to modify. So that's what I think that we want the citizens of Olmsted County to understand, that the finances are in order, that the county is in excellent financial shape, and that's not only due to all of the people that work in the accounting, but it also is due to the commissioners and the past commissioners for being very careful with the county's money.
That's correct.
Thank you very much. Yes.
I just have a curiosity question. How many years in a row have we had the AAA bonding radio?
Oh, that's a good question.
I don't expect you to know off the top of your head, but it would be, I think it would be worth bragging rights for the county if we could just have that number. Because I think I heard last year that it's a very, very small percentage of the counties.
Yes, only 3% of the counties in the U.S. have a AAA rating.
Right.
Only 3%.
3%. There are about 3,300 counties. That means only 100 of them, around 100 of them, have a AAA bond rating.
So, thank you. It'd be fun to know how many years.
And I believe for sure the 5 or 6 years that we've been doing the audit, it has been that reading. So
Yep.
I'm sure it goes back further.
And it goes back further, yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
nice
you.
job. Pleasure.
Thank you, Baker Tilly. Thank you.
Thank you.
So there's a resolution that you need to approve,
Yes.
so.
All right. And, you know, I don't have a copy of the resolution in front of me. And the resolution is basically to affirm the report. Is that correct?
To accept the report.
To accept the report.
I'll make a motion to accept the financial report.
Second.
All right. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Yeah, all right.
Thank you.
It is carried and we have accepted the report. All righty. So we have at 5B, we have our administrator Heidi Welsh going to give us the 2023 mid-year staffing request.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, and for our viewing audience, as the Chair said, my name is Heidi Welsh, and I am the administrator here at the county. I don't get to present very often, so this is a little bit exciting to me. We have a walk-in that we weren't planning on this morning, but I have been through it with 6 of the 7 of you, and the administrative committee felt that it would make sense to bring this to the board because we don't have another meeting until the end of July. We're walking it on today a little bit early. So Claire's got it pulled up, and I'm going to go through the 2023 mid-year staffing request, which was presented this morning to the administrative committee in a non-public meeting. I'm going to start with this chart, which shows you in the maroon colored bars, that's our total number of FTEs. It's our FTE count from 2021 up to what we predict for 2024. And the kind of blue bar there is the number of FTEs per capita. So you can see that it's come down over years and then it stayed pretty steady here since about 2016, 2017, well, really even all the way back to 2012. It's been pretty steady. And that is purposeful, right? When you think about the number of FTEs per capita, that means that we're growing our FTEs, but we're trying to grow our FTEs only at a rate that reflects the growth in the community. Which of course makes sense that you're going to have increased caseloads, we're going to have more mileage of road, we're going to need more sheriff's deputies as the community grows and so forth. But we don't want to see a line that changes dramatically without any explanation, really up or down. There should be an explanation either way if it does something other than stay flat. So you'll see down in the corner of this slide that using our projection, using that bar, calculating out, it means that if we want to stay flat, we should not add more than 17 FTEs this year. Meaning in the 2024 budget, there shouldn't be more than 17 more FTEs in the 2024 budget than there was in the 2023. So that's kind of the backdrop that I use when we are thinking through what are the requests that are most urgent and what are the requests that I'm going to bring forward to the board. This kind of says just what I got to for you, that there are 17 would be that magic number for this year. It's also always important at this time of the year to bring up, okay, and what have you already approved? We try very hard to channel all mid-year requests to this one board meeting of the year, and we really keep it to things that are urgent. We're not asking for, you know, things that might be nice. This is just for very urgent requests. It also happens some years, most years, there are a couple of FTEs that have already been approved because of some sort of urgent situation earlier in the year. And you will all remember that earlier this year you approved 2 social workers for the housing stability team who are working on family homelessness, and that was funded by a new and special stream of state funding. There are also 3 new housing, I said housing maintenance workers here. I believe it's actually 2 maintenance workers and 1 property manager. If you'll remember that, what we believe, and I'm looking at Travis to make sure I got that straight. Okay, good. We said we'll hire 2 maintenance workers and come back if they need a 3rd, but there was also a property manager in there. So that's how you get to 5. We've already added 5. So if you're keeping track, that's 17 minus 5. 12 more FTEs would be the limit between these 2 budget cycles if we want to stay flat on that chart. So this, I know it's kind of small print and not really meant to be able to read from a long distance, but this just gives you the total list of requests that I received. I know and I trust our staff that they do only bring forward things that truly they think are urgent. This is not, it's not fluffy. This is things that are urgent, and yet it's a lot of requests. So I'm not going to go through each one here, but I'm going to flip to the next slide, which gives you what I reviewed with 6 of you in 2 different meetings this morning. This is what I recommended, which is the top in blue. So I'm going to go through that just a little bit. 3.0, 3 new eligibility workers, and you will remember that because of the pandemic, there was a hold put on reviewing medical assistance cases. And now it is time for us to unwind, is the word that's come to be common parlance, to unwind the pandemic within our medical assistance system. So they really need more workers for that purpose, and also because they've just flat out seen increased numbers of our food, that's SNAP, the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, and more numbers in our cash programs, as well as child care. I think we've seen increases in all those caseloads. So 3.0 eligibility workers, that is my highest recommendation, my top priority here in this list. The next one that I'm recommending is 1.0, a care coordinator, a social worker. You will remember that last fall, the board decided, was it last fall? I'm sorry, I'm losing track of time, but we decided to add staffing for UCare. UCare asked us to bring it, to add some staffing for care coordination, and we agreed to do that. Care coordination is, we're reimbursed for that. I'm going to flip back to the earlier slide, which I think I can do. Yes, I can. I don't have a way to highlight the line, but if you'll see the second to the last column on this chart shows you the expected revenue, and for this particular item, it shows that it costs us $124,000 for a social worker in this area, but we expect to recoup $124,000. Thus, I'm saying this is one that doesn't cost us any levy. The next item is 2 social workers, a social worker and a senior social worker, to work in adult mental health targeted case management. This is an area that's experienced a 35% increase in caseload. We've also had trouble trying to maintain the right staffing load, and they really do need some assistance. So that was on my list. This one is reimbursed. Oops, sorry, that was the wrong way. I'm going to get it. That one is reimbursed, but not entirely. That one's down towards the bottom of the list there, in case you want to look at that. The next one that I recommended was a 0.5 social worker with our CADI waiver. Oh golly, I'm not going to remember exactly what CADI stands for, but it is a program for folks with various disabilities, traumatic brain injury, and they have a waiver so that they get services that normally wouldn't be allowed on medical assistance. That's really what that's about. The department asked for 1.5 social workers in this area, and I am recommending a 0.5. Right now, they have a 0.5 person who is retiring. Let's add this other 0.5 to that position and see where we can get to with 1.0. Hold on the other 1.0 is my recommendation. Whoops. The next one on the list is a program manager for adult and family services. They do have incredibly high ratios of staff to supervisors. However, and I really put this on here to give Travis some credit and HHH some credit, a lot of things we solve without coming to you, really. We find ways to repurpose things, or we find ways to solve it without new staff, and this is one of those scenarios where we're transferring an existing position from corrections, where they don't need the supervisor for those ratios as much, and we're putting them in AFS. So I really put it on there to make the point that we really are trying to be as efficient as we can be. The last three on the blue box there, 3 positions that were requested by the county attorney's office. These 3 positions have been funded through ARPA with the board's permission for the past 2 years, year and a half? Anyway, year and a half is what Wilfredo's saying. They're all positions that are needed at varying levels. The one that I would call out is that last one, the first one, the legal assistant trial support specialist. This one is needed not only because of caseloads, but because there was a major change in the way that state courts have done their work in preparing for trials. Essentially, without going into all the details, much of the work of preparation of exhibits used to be the job of court administration, and it now falls to every prosecutor in the state. So that's something, that's just an added bonus that we receive that we must do. There's no way out of that one. Okay, and then there are positions there. I won't go through everything on the bottom, but the bottom shows the positions that, while they're important, I'm recommending we can wait until the full budget, and they will come back and be able to compare them to everything else that will come forward in the full budget. So the summary, I'm going to the top box, the summary of what I recommended was 7.5 new FTEs, change 3.3 FTEs from provisional to permanent. They're already in that number of FTEs that we have, but changing them from provisional to permanent would cost us money because they were previously on ARPA. That recommendation, the total would be about $650,000 in additional levy. That's not the total cost, because some of it, remember, we're receiving revenue for. That would be how much new levy, and that equals 0.5 levy increase. In other words, 651 is 0.5% of our current levy, which is 119,457,000, but who's counting? Okay, and then I won't go through the bottom one. I'm just going to go then to the next slide, which after I met with admin committee, they heard and thought about all of these and agreed with some and modified a little bit. So I'm just going to go through the modifications here. The first, starting with the eligibility workers, they agreed with that, and I want to note it's not marked on this slide, but they also noted that it is the board's expectation that FSA will come back to us when we have gotten through that pandemic unwinding to report out, okay, do you still need these FTEs or do we now not need them? So we will make sure to do that. Let's see, admin committee also is recommending to this full board only 1 social worker in, let's see, which one was it? Targeted case management, and that's where I had 2 of them, and they're recommending just 1 for now. And then the other change made by the other change made by the admin committee was to take out 2 of the positions requested from the county attorney's office, and that would be on the bottom of your green box, adult prosecutor and the victim witness legal assistant. We would hold on those until the full budget to see if that's needed. So the summary here from admin committee, and this is what I'm asking for you to confirm, is that we will add 6.5 new FTEs with this mid-year fill. One existing FTE will move from provisional to permanent. It's a total approximate levy add of 384,000, and it equates to 0.3 levy increase. In other words, this is signing off on, yep, and for 2024, if you keep all your programs even, nothing else changes, this equals a 0.3 levy increase. Questions?
All right, commissioners have any questions? All right, thank you for the report then.
So how do you want to word this?
Well, this is the way I would suggest, if that's all right with you, is that the administrative committee has already made their report and recommended these things. So what I'm asking for is a motion to affirm the mid-year staffing report as given by our administrator, Heidi Welsh.
Should be someone that's not you. I'll do it. I'll make a motion to affirm.
All right.
Mid-year staffing.
Need a second? And I have a second. Thank you. Are there any last questions?
Mr. Chair, just a comment.
Yeah.
At least to the public, it may seem that this is going through pretty easy, but for those of us at this table, we have, the public should know that we've gone through this pretty extensively before we got here tonight. So the fact that there's not any questions doesn't mean there wasn't any along the path.
Right. I appreciate that very much. Thank you very much. The board is extraordinarily deliberative in its approaches and study these things very carefully. And we're very careful with the taxpayers' money. So, having a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Carries. It is affirmed. All right, we are on to the 2022 year end and 2023 mid-year county-wide balanced scorecard results. What's the score?
What's the score? We're all winners. Well, good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. My name is Julie Hatch. I'm a management analyst with the Policy Analysis and Communications Department. Joining me tonight are the directors of our Finance Department and our Human Resources Department. I'll allow them to introduce themselves when they come up to present. We are here tonight to share with you the results from Olmsted County's 2022 Balanced Scorecard measures and provide an update on the 2023 progress updates on our current 2023 Balanced Scorecard. Okay, I figure out how to use this. All right. Before we review our results and progress to date, I want to give a brief overview of the Balanced Scorecard components or the perspectives and why we use the strategic planning and management system. The Balanced Scorecard is a planning and management system that helps transform our mission and vision into action and consists of 4 perspectives or lenses through which strategy and performance can be viewed. There is the customer lens, or the lens of our stakeholders and residents, to determine the needs, make sure that their needs are being met. The financial lens, to ensure we are fiscal stewards of our resources. The internal processes lens, to ensure our processes are efficient and effective. And the last, our learning and growth lens, to ensure we have qualified staff and resources and technology to do the work. The 4 perspectives allow us to understand our work as a system and give us a more balanced view of performance. The Balanced Scorecard tool also provides a visible connection between our mission and our vision, the strategic priorities, goals, and objectives we are trying to accomplish, measures we are using to track our progress, such as our key performance indicators, and the projects and programs we are working on. Initially designed for for-profit organizations where the financial perspective was the most important aspect of their work, the other 3 perspectives gave them a more balanced view of the performance to improve their bottom line. For example, to improve their bottom line, they may need to increase their customer base, to improve their processes, They may also assess if they have enough qualified staff to do the right, or staff or the right technology to do the work to achieve better financial outcomes. Excuse me. Nonprofit and government agencies began using the balanced scorecard tool to gain a more balanced view of their performance as well. However, their most important perspective is their customer, or our stakeholders and residents. The customer perspective for Olmsted County, our resident quality of life, is of highest importance, but our residents and other stakeholders also pay taxes that help fund the services we provide. So the financial perspective is very close second in order of importance. As local government agencies, we ask ourselves, what do we wish to achieve for our residents or customers, and how can their needs be met? And then we look through the other lenses to plan accordingly to achieve our intended goals for our customer while being fiscally responsible. So moving on to our results and our targets, let's look at our balanced scorecard perspective, starting with the customer perspective, or what we refer to as the resident quality of life. And I know it looks really small up there on the screen. I apologize for that. In 2022, we focused on 3 measures to help improve our resident qualities of life. The measures include residents reporting satisfaction with county services, residents reporting quality of life, and residents rating the Olmsted County's performance at fulfilling its vision. These measures are assessed through a triennial residential survey, which I believe you received a report on those recently. Here we show the results from 2019 and the results from 2022. Please note that these are not percentages, rather ratings out of 100. Unfortunately, we did not meet our targets for 2022, but we will continue to work on and collect the triennial resident surveys as it provides trends over time. However, to gather interim data, in 2023, we are focusing on standardizing customer satisfaction measures to develop consistent customer service survey data collection questions. Many Olmsted County programs and services already collect customer satisfaction feedback. However, they lack consistent questions that are comparable and can give us information to provide an overview of the county more frequently than the residential survey. Because our work varies across the county, we develop standardized, themed questions where departments or programs are given a set of suggested questions for each theme. While I don't have all those different questions with me tonight, the theme questions focus on respect, where the customer's needs met, how can we do better, and the 4th standardizes demographic data collection using the United States Core Data for Interoperability standards that also align with our Racial Equity Initiative recommendations, also formally known as the Joint Study Work. This standardized demographic data will ensure that employees have guidance on how to capture these data consistently across the organization. So next, we will present the financial stewardship perspective, which I will hand over to the Director of our Finance. Yes.
Ms. Hatch, when I look at that survey results, I'm pleased to see that you're changing the customer satisfaction survey to more specific to the direct customers of the county. Because I believe, am I correct, that the survey results were from the general resident survey, but not to our specific customers?
That is correct.
So my observation is that most people don't really know what the county does. And so then measuring the satisfaction, are we meeting our mission? They're not well informed enough, whereas our direct customers may be better informed to give us feedback that can guide us in how to improve. Am I interpreting this correctly?
You are definitely interpreting that correctly, yes.
Okay.
And we've found that over time that the residential survey isn't the most useful tool for our departments to really plan for improvement efforts and to be able to measure that over time. But it does give us still a great way to trend and see how we're doing and look to see what we can still do to improve to reach out to those.
So does that mean that we will do the customer surveys in addition to the residential survey?
Yes, we'll still continue to do the residential survey every 3 years. Again, it still allows us to gather those trends. And really our work, if we're increasing communications and if we're increasing our community outreach and engagement, we're hoping then that people will be more informed of the work that we're doing.
Thank you.
All right, I'll turn it over to Wilfredo.
Well, hello again. Alfredo Roman Catala, Olmsted County Chief Financial Officer. Well, it is my pleasure to share with you some of that financial stewardship information. And just so we're clear, the information presented in this slide relates to governmental funds only, not the whole totality of the county financial stewardship. Since we're dealing with fund balances, levies, that's why we decided it would be better off to then stick to the cash balance that relates to governmental funds. Otherwise, will be apples and oranges. So what you see here, the first metric that we have is related to the balances of cash as a percent of our operating revenues. And this is one of those factors related to the AAA rating. So we were targeting around 50%, and as you can see over the last 3 years, we have exceeded that, especially now in 2022, where we ended up with about 64.6% of cash over revenues. And then if we move to the middle column where we have the unrestricted fund balance is also as a percent of operating revenues is also another metric that rating agencies are using to decide if we are worthy of a AAA moving forward. You also know that the state auditors have these guidance that says, hey, for governmental funds, keeping a fund balance anywhere between 35 to 50%. Then we divided that by 2 and came up with the 42.5 as the target. As you can see, we have been at that range or above for the past 3 years. And for 2022, we ended up at 47.4%. You know, obviously, there's a lot of influx of federal funding related to the pandemic, so that is influencing these numbers as well. Since we took the path of going of least resistance with the option under ARPA to claim a revenue loss calculation, that meant that we use the ARPA dollars to satisfy operational needs of salaries and benefits. We then created the opportunity for us to create reserves in the form of unused tax dollars, tax levy dollars, that then will be used for the same initiative that you originally identified for ARPA. And that's why you see those balances being the way they are. And then finally, the last column here, you have levy ranking per capita. We strive to have a target of being below the 43 mark out of all the 87 counties. And we've been floating between 29, 32, and then again now in 2022 at 30. So in all these different stewardship metrics, we've been on target or better. We have no changes in financial stewardship measures moving forward to 2023. I think we believe we have the right measures, unless you differ from that. But that's what we're going for 2023. And as I mentioned to you before during the audit report, this is a collective effort. And the reason why we have good measures in financial metrics and good audit results is because everybody is up to the plate and trying to do the best we can when it comes to financial stewardship. The departments are very actively engaged in reviewing reports. They're always asking questions. There's opportunity. We have staff, finance staff, who are in many cases embedded into the senior leadership meetings and groups of different divisions, so they have the opportunity to interact, listen to what is happening, and provide financial consultation on the spot. So that's been very beneficial. As I mentioned to you, we have at least twice a year, we do the full on board review of the budget, how we're doing compared to actuals. If we need to recalibrate, we do that. And ongoing treasury management and monitoring of our investments in cash. That being really critical. And then, like I mentioned before, how important is having people who care and they understand their purpose and they're engaged. So that's another key opportunity here for our financial stewardship. That sometimes in other organizations they think they have all the right tools, but they're missing the really important component, the human aspect, and understanding those individuals are engaged and understand their purpose. Let's see who's next. Yeah.
All right, moving on to internal processes. In 2022, we focused on 3 internal process measures: diversity data collection, countywide employee communications, and internal customer service efficacy. The diversity data collection is actually an extension of the consistent customer service survey data collection under the resident quality of life. However, because of the specificity of the work, we listed the measure separately under internal processes. In 2022, we met our target to standardize the diversity data. And in 2023, we will collect and analyze the data. This information will allow us to better understand the diversity of the people we are serving, how well we are serving them, and the opportunities to improve internally. The next measure, countywide employee communications, our baseline in 2021 was 88%, where 88% of our employees rated our employee communication as good or excellent. In 2022, 91% rated our overall employee communication as good or excellent, with 42% rating it as excellent. Our goal for 2023 is actually 90%, but I think it says 89 on there. With 50% of our employees rating our employee communication as excellent. The internal customer service efficacy measures how well our internal services departments provide satisfactory service to our internal customers. We were just shy of reaching our target in 2022 and will continue to work toward our target goal of 90% in 2023. The information tells us what we are doing well and where we can improve on the services they received. Our most recent update on this measure shows that we are 86% internal customer service satisfaction. Lastly, for 2023, although not new to Olmsted County, the Joint Study of Race and Racism as a Public Health Issue, now referred to as Racial Equity Initiative, is a new measure on our countywide balance scorecard for 2023. We have already accomplished a lot with the Joint Study Subgroup, identifying 42 recommendations across 9 focus areas in 2022. Our target for 2023 is to develop milestones and prioritize recommendations. So far in 2023, we have assigned staff to focus on the Racial Equity Initiative work, where they have completed a comprehensive inventory of gaps and assets for each recommendation. An analysis and synthesis of the information will be presented to the committees to determine which recommendations to bring forward. And then the second half of 2023 will focus on action planning around those recommendations.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, Ms. Hatch, back one slide again, please.
Sorry about that.
So when you are speaking to standardizing demographic data collection, is that for the residential survey, or is that generally for our services?
That's just generally for that will be included within that customer satisfaction that we talked about in the residential survey.
Customers or residents, there's a difference. Is it for the residents or for the customer?
It's for the customer. Yes, so the customer satisfaction survey, that will be part of that. What we have found is that we're not consistent with the questions that we put on there as far as people indicating their race and ethnicity. So this allows us to ask those questions consistently across the board so that we can make some of those comparisons and we can see how well we're doing with different races and ethnicities and how we provide them customer service.
Well, the reason I'm asking the question is because of the 42 recommendations and 9 focus areas on the joint study, at least 2 of them related to data collection.
Yes.
And I'm hoping that there's a link.
Yep, there is definitely that link with the diversity, the different questions that we're asking around demographic data. Because again, we're finding that there are inconsistencies, and so in order to get that consistent across all of it, we're going to be able to have a better understanding of who we're serving, how we're serving them, and then there's opportunities for improvement.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Hatch, question regarding internal customer service efficacy. Are your questions worded such that you can understand if there's a particular department that is failing internal customers and that's why we're seeing shifts in data, or can you dive any deeper beyond broad internal services?
Yes, they do have it broken down by
Awesome.
department, so we're able to see by department how
Great.
well we're doing there.
And good feedback for each department.
Absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely. All right. So I'm going the wrong way. And I just kind of focused on those things that we'll be doing in 2023. Next, I'm going to hand this over to Julian Curry, the Director of our Human Resources, to talk about our organizational capacity results here. There you are, sir.
So, Julian Curry, Director of Human Resources, covering a few topics around recruitment and retention. So you see our employee turnover numbers broken out, where it includes our retirees and then later excludes our retirement. So you see 2021, where we're including retirees, 11.5% in 2020. 2021, it goes down to 6%. And then back up in 2022, around 9.25%. But if you look over the next column there, I'll stay with 2022, where turnover excluding retires at 6.82%. Once again, we want to stay under that 10% threshold for our turnover. So we are well under that. Usually the industry norm for an organization is definitely in the mid-teens, mid to upper teens. So we are doing an excellent job of our retention of our staff. Moving over, looking at our race and ethnicity numbers for staff, where we want to be more representative of our community. Once again, you see in 2020 we were at a little over 8%. We increased that to about 9.5% in 2021, and we reached 10% in 2022. Like I said, we still want to reach those low teens here in 2023 and get closer to the 13% number. And like you heard from Wilfredo earlier, that employee engagement is key to all these numbers, from retaining our staff, as well as telling our story and how we're a great place to work to bring in new staff. So that's through finding, really establishing the purpose for our staff to get value out of the work they're doing. And you see that we're coming in at that 73% threshold, and we want to be above that in 2023, measurement of keeping our staff engaged. And how do we accomplish much of this? Well, we were just received the award in 2023. Olmsted County has been awarded Best Place to Work in southeastern Minnesota. So kudos to County Board, the executive management team, administration, and all of our county staff on accomplishing that. Another thing that has really played a role in us retaining staff, as well as increasing our recruitment efforts, is the implementation of the compensation plan that we worked on for the last 18 months, all of 2022 and second half of 2021. But implementing that and really focusing on our salary ranges, specifically for our entry-level positions, has allowed us to be even more marketable, even more attractive to our target audience, and so much so that we've seen a high uptick in our candidate pools. Before, it wasn't uncommon for us to see candidate pools come in, candidate numbers come in from 5 candidates to 20. We've tripled that in most of that. So now we're seeing 15 to as many as 50. We're not back to where we have been in the past, 100 applicants. Don't know if we'll ever get that high again, but to see a triple uptick in most of our positions is is very rewarding and exciting. So that's back to developing recruitment strategies. So we're shifting from a reactive recruitment strategy to a proactive, where we're partnering with the departments to better tell our story, better go out and find, get in front of those candidates. So we're partnering with the staff to go out to job fairs, to college fairs, to the high schools, to highlight all the jobs and opportunities we have. We're looking to partner with our higher education, RCTC, Hawthorne, and many other institutions to continue to develop and build curriculum that's for the public sector. Improved efficiencies in the process of the hub and NeoGov. So that's, once again, the staffing process of how we bring people into the organization, how we track that candidate from application all the way through the interview process, and once they become staff, how do we move them through their career here through promotion. So that's leveraging technology, our new software, the hub, and our NeoGov partners around that. You heard about the surveys that we're doing for the community residential. We're also doing employee surveys. Once again, we're on a 3-year cycle. So that's what you see there is the kind of pulse survey, understanding what are the needs and the wants of our staff. So it's a component of the big survey that we did a while back, and we've broken that down to measure engagement, and we put that at the department level. And so we'll continue that work in 2023, collaborating with departments to boost those engagement numbers. And then the wellness initiatives, once again, developed at the department level, participating in the Wellness Summit, where departments have an opportunity to share across the organization what's working for their teams, for their departments when it comes to wellness and supportive of their employees. And it's a time for us to share best practices throughout the organization. And then, of course, improved communication and structure of annual trainings. So once again, investing in our employees to help with their career aspiration and goals, and to ensure that we are best serving our community by giving them all the tools and skills to be able to do their work efficiently and effectively. And then flexible work schedules, which is tailored to those departments, tailored to the work they're doing, whether that involves creative shift hours, whether that's remote work, combination of 24/7 operations and how those are staffed. So I think that's, any questions for me? Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Me again.
Better put that mic down. He's a little taller than you.
There, that is, yes. I would have to present with probably the tallest here. With the countywide balanced scorecard measures, we also have measures that cascade down through the organization, which are under resident quality of life, the consistent customer service satisfaction data collection. Again, we're kind of going back to that to make sure that we're working with the departments. The programs and services that are currently conducting customer satisfaction surveys have been asked to include these standardized questions for consistency across the organization. We have also asked that new customer service survey tools also include these standardized questions. And then we take an inventory of the programs and services that are offering those, and then we're able to collect that data into a comprehensive report. Under financial stewardship, all departments measure and track the percent of actual revenues they use from property taxes. If there's questions on that, I would defer them to Alfredo. But I do know that they have started collecting the data on that, and so that's something that continues to show up on their balance scorecards, and they're able to track and measure the progress on that. Under organizational capacity, the departments continue to monitor and measure their employee engagement and employee race and ethnicity, and implement strategies to improve both. So again, you can kind of tell based on the countywide strategic or countywide balance scorecards how those are now being trickled down and cascaded down to the departments. We also wanted to take the opportunity to update the board on the strategic planning work, as it will more than likely impact the balanced scorecard development for 2024. The strategic planning team recently finalized a mission, vision, and value drafts that we'll be bringing forward to the board for review and approval. The planning team and county leaders met just last week and developed draft priorities and goals that we will again bring forward to the executive management team and the board for review and approval. Once approved, we will then develop those objectives and implementation plan that will include key performance indicators as well as strategies and action plans for 2024 implementation. So bringing us back to the current balanced scorecard work, the next step is to begin discussion with department directors in July, which actually I think we start meeting with them next week to kick off the 2024 balanced scorecard development process with them. So I believe this is our last slide, so if you have any questions at this time.
Commissioners, have any questions? No.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. All right, so we are at board and committee reports. Does anybody have a board committee report?
Mr. Chair, I'll pass.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I do have some notes from a recent committee that I'll share.
Yeah.
Recently at the Human Rights Commission committee meeting, Lisa Morris Helmstetler presented to the group there on One Olmsted, which I believe we as a board will hear more about in the coming weeks and months. And so just a high-level overview of what I learned. One Olmsted is Olmsted County's Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity Initiative. The One Olmsted resolution was unanimously adopted by the Olmsted County Board of Commissioners in 2017, and it commits Olmsted County to using a health, a social, and a racial equity lens to address disparity in our community. The organizational mission of One Olmsted is to attract, hire, develop, advance, retain, and engage a workforce that reflects the public we serve, draws from all segments of society, and values equity, diversity, and inclusion. So it really dovetails nicely with the presentation that we just heard about the balanced scorecard and understanding the needs of staff, customers, and Olmsted County residents. So I found the presentation really interesting, and I'm eager to learn more. So thank you for that.
Commissioner Cascade.
Mr. Chair, on Saturday, I attended the Juneteenth celebration on Martin Luther King Park, and I thought that the new displays that the county staff have ordered for Olmsted County and for the Youth Commission were really nicely done, and it was a really good turnout. I was only there really, I didn't get through I only had an hour, and I only got through about half of the displays, but we were very well represented, and our new display booths that we'll be using in a variety of locations are really well done, and the superintendent of schools noted that he's going to have to order some for his staff now. So we inspired a little more care. I also wanted to just mention that a couple of us attended I think 3 of us attended the Association of Counties District 9 meeting. And one of my takeaways is the need maybe to look at regional emergency response. There was an interest expressed by Goodhue County Commissioner about looking at a regional approach rather than a county by county approach, and just we'll mention that. And then finally today, the Health and Human Services Committee had a very detailed conversation with our staff about the opioid settlement funds. And if you recall, I think it was just our last meeting, or maybe it was 2 meetings ago, we basically asked them to go back to the drawing board with what they had recommended on opioid settlement funds. And what they came forward with today is based on an integration of the opioid settlement funds for an opioid-specific response that is parallel to what has been put in place for the more or less the mental health crisis emergency response through DECO. And they have done a site visit to Duluth and learned a lot about the project that they had for opioid and substance abuse response, which is now about 5 years old. And they believe that Duluth and Olmsted County will be among the early adopters of this evidence-based model, and that we therefore may qualify for some federal funding. But they have proposed a staffing model that would use our opioid settlement funds for Olmsted County staff that would create this opioid response with a program coordinator, with a licensed chemical dependency assessment staff person, and with a more or less an outreach staff person. So that will be coming to us as after hearing it, the three of us on the committee thought that they'd done a good job. We asked a lot of questions about outcomes and measurement and long-term funding, and we'll be coming back to the board with the recommendation for approval. And I'll just give you a little heads up now, because we just had it today, and you will be hearing more from staff as they bring that proposal forward for staffing that function using the opioid settlement funds.
Thank you. Commissioner Rossman.
I would just mention that last week I attended a meeting hosted by Minnesota Farmers Union that was a focus on the soil health program that is being put forth in Olmsted County, and there were farmers there, agronomists, other local community members who had an interest in what was happening, and it was really nice to hear staff speak to the acres that are enrolled, the feedback they're getting back from farmers who are right now have just finished their certification process in year 1, and they're looking at year 2 sign up. And obviously we're well into the growth season now here this spring into summer, and Farmers Union really appreciated having the opportunity to host that and bring some more folks to the table to understand that soil health program. So it was a good learning opportunity for lots of people.
Thank you for your involvement in that. Commissioner Mueller.
No report.
Commissioner Tyne.
I'll just share an experience I had. About every 5 years, I do a great purge on my house, whether it needs it or not. Turns out it almost always needs it. So about a week ago, I went down to the waste to energy facility with a trailer full of stuff that I no longer needed, and I interacted with 4 employees, and easily each of them could be the best employee of any company they work for. Their customer service is fantastic. So I just want to give them kudos for that.
Yep. My experience is the same with the staff. 2 things. First of all, we've wondered about how long we've had a AAA bond rating, and Wilfredo did some research on that. It's only been 22 years we've had a AAA bond rating, and I think that is a testament not only to the current boards and the current finance team, but also those that preceded us for 22 years. And all we're doing is we're building on the good work that other people have already done, and our commitment is not to mess that up.
That's right.
So that's number 1. And number 2, I want to give my thanks to Martin Larson. And I don't know if you know that, but Martin Larson is a citizen farmer, but he's also an employee of the county in soil and water, who testified before the Ag Committee in Washington, D.C. as one of 4 panelists. And he was talking about to the Budget Committee of what they can do to improve the federal programs for farmers. And Martin took with him not only his personal experience, but also the work that he does in the county, as well as with other farmers in the Byron area. So if you haven't seen it, I think you can catch it on YouTube, or I can send you a link for that. But my appreciation goes to Martin Larson, and we're very appreciative to have him as an employee of the county with his great expertise. So thank you very much, Martin Larson. All right.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Yep, I have a motion to adjourn in a second. And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Oath that you guys had signed earlier, but you actually need to read it. So I think it should show up. You might need to be closer. Thank you. There's the oath. So if you want to read it all together.
All right, here we go. We,
the undersigned members